Hello and welcome back to another legendary episode of the one and only Speculation Alley. It's your boy ABOMB here, and as usual, and as always, my brother from another mother is with me, Cryptodilly. What's going on, my boy?
Not a lot, dude. Just ready to get into some wag me son, a little speculation, and pump these bags, baby.
Yeah, it's going to be some wacky wag me son, and this one's going to be a little deep for you, so hold on. We're going to rewind to last Thursday really quick and unpack these tweets that came out. First, we had this epic video that played. I don't know if Dilly wants to cap that off really quick for us, and I'll drop the rest from there.
Yeah, let's play the video real quick.
All right, so that video was followed along with a few other tweets. The first one that came after that was Marshall Howland intruding into Wagmi-san's tent and saying, "It's been you this whole time, skimming resources from the land right under my nose." And we have kind of some weird stuff going on here. We see Wagmi-san with this giant orb or like ball that he's packing up. Was that the device that we just saw in the previous tweet with that video? Could be. Maybe it's the resources that he's been skimming this whole time. But I know Dilly also pointed out we got a bunch of other stuff happening in the background. We got these little pod things that have a blue glow and slit through them. We don't know what the hell that is either, but the tools is really interesting. And I want Dilly to break down his theory on what he thinks the tools are, because they look very peculiarly placed. Yeah, I can't say that word.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of speculation going on around this image specifically. You got Marshall Howland, which looks like he's just barging into Wagmi-san's tent. And it does look as though, Wagmi-san's just kind of like packaging up his resource skimmer. And I think that video that we saw previously would make sense that that's the resource skimmer. And what we're seeing behind Wagmi-san, the glowing rocks, are actually the resources that Wagmi-san has been skimming. Now, what the resources are used for, what land it's being, harvested from, different things like that, it positions you to think in a different perspective of whether Wagmi-san's the good guy in the situation or the bad guy. In my opinion, if you're in a new frontier, right, then the land is not owned and you can't have claim ownership of it. So is Marshall Howland, saying that you're skimming the resources from the people, the land that isn't even owned by him? And that is the question right there. The next thing that we see is obviously Marshall Howland coming in and dropping these tools. Or it could be a magnetic force field, which is what some other people are saying. However, what I am speculating is that we still have a long time in season one. What we saw the start of the season kick off with was airdropping tools and materials. I think this is a very interesting way to show us that we're going to get dropped tools, airdrop tools. It's dropping that mechanic, because they wouldn't have had cameras. They would actually have to break out one of those really old school exploding light bulb cameras for this period of time that we're seeing Wagmi-san in. And so this is now 10KTF saying dropping tools. What do you think of that?
Well, I think that's brilliant, and I want to just jump straight into the next tweet, because the next one is Wagmi-san being dragged out of the room. And before we go to that, let's go back really quick, though. So now you see these tools. You can see certain items that look like they may be reusable, but also items that may, once you use them for something, may be crafted or cemented with that item, such as the bolt and the nut there. So I'm wondering if this is a tools and materials drop, like you're saying, to help Wagmi-san in the future, maybe to either help him rebuild that orb that we're seeing and Howland's, maybe taking control of, or just to help him escape the, I guess the confines of these not so savory folk that just drug him out of his own tent. But yeah, I think that speculation is awesome. We've been talking about tools for quite some time. I know one of the community members dropped into the Discord and asked Hideaki, hey, when are we going to be able to unstake our tools? And the response was that they are working on actually updating the contract and soon. So hopefully we'll see a bunch of stuff coming out in the near future. But let's continue. We see Howen here now, and he's got a pretty evil smirk on his face. It almost reminds me, what I thought of this when I saw this was like, we remember Wagmi-san early on talking with Howen, and Howen's like, I got to build structure out here. And he later on was by himself, Wagmi-san was, and said his vision is different than mine, So they had different visions maybe. And it seems now that Wagmi-san may have been harvesting the right materials or resources to build the vision that he saw out. But now he's been almost robbed of those materials and resources by this guy, Howen. And what's going to play out, we don't know. And it continuously makes me think about the thing they keep dropping, which is I can't let happen again what happened last summer. Jeez. But yeah, that's what Wagmi-san dropped almost at the very beginning of this entire story of this project of 10KTF.
I think for sure, like this image right here really paints a really good picture of the type of character Howen is going to be in the story. It paints him as the antagonist. And this whole time it's been this buildup of like structure and order and all this stuff, which in dystopian societies, that's literally like the confines, like you're restricted of your freedoms, right? And so in a decentralized new frontier, the idea is to actually give power back to the people, which Marshall Howen's actually restricting. So I think he's being portrayed as the bad guy in this. And obviously that is a direct, portrayal of that, because you can see Wagmi-san is gagged, as you mentioned in the Twitter spaces last week, but also you have these, masked figures that are cowboys basically hauling him out after he made this discovery that Wagmi-san has been skimming the resources. And the resources look as to be glowing onto Howen's face. He's like obsessed with this resource. And I think you're right. That plays into what happened last summer, which Wagmi-san does not want to have happen again when we see him in the future. Right.
Yeah.
So
right.
I think
it almost looks like
that.
Yeah, it almost looks like Howen has his own ideas of what he's going to do with this, right? Like he's not like looking at it like, oh my, he's like, oh, I know what I'm like, you know what I'm saying? Like their vision, and why I think again 10KTF does great foreshadowing and dropping those little hints in there. I think this is that moment where we're going to see Howen's vision of structure come into play, and he might be using these resources to do that. So
Now, one thing that's super interesting, and I don't know how this mechanic is going to really play out, but that contraption that's wrapped up, I mean, obviously Wagmi-san knows how to use this. I wouldn't think that Marshall Howen knows how to use this machine, but what I kind of foresee is people have been speculating that you can use a G tag in this machine, or that there's a slot for a G tag. What I'm kind of speculating is that maybe there's a website or a mechanic that opens up where we know that we are to use our G tags wisely. Imagine that you're able to use your G tag, and that G tag will then actually do like a gambling, almost slot machine, where it'll actually give you resources. So because you actually participated in season one, similar to season one where we got airdrop tools and materials, those who actually participated in season one and have G tags, they're going to be able to actually have an advantage because they can insert a G tag and it could spit out these resources that then they could use to actually help build different items or different things within this new frontier. And so that's the way that I think that plays into it, where it's like use your G tags wisely, because if you use all your G tags all at once, or if you use just one G tag, it's not like you can be very strategic in the way that you're actually using the G tags as opposed to just getting a PFP, which I know that that's the direction that everybody else is thinking about, G tags currently.
Yeah, and I love this theory because it goes. I had said this before. We have to remember Wagmi-san's lane and what he is in like this greater world or metaverse, whatever we want to call it. He's a craftsman. He builds things. Of course, he does other things, but that's how we were first introduced to him, and that's usually the branding that we're going to remember most. So it would make sense for him to have a machine that would be able to pull resources that he could then use to make other things from, you know what I mean? It just like lines up. And if he can't use them, maybe we come to use the machine to help him and get those resources and maybe get him
and
out of
save him.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
That's the thing, right? This machine is already up and available, and Howen doesn't know how to work it. Maybe us, the community, need to come together to be able to, use this machine.
Sweet, that'll be fun. Convince Modest to go hang out with Howen so he can use the machine. It's not going to happen, I,
Yeah.
but I think
Well,
that's
I mean,
the wrap.
I'm curious to hear what the community speculation is on this, whether it aligns with ours or if you have different opinions. Leave a comment below. Obviously, give this video a thumbs up. Help us with the YouTube algorithm. Subscribe to the channel if you got any value from this, and then feel free to join us on Speculation Alley Twitter Spaces each and every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, where we unpack all this as a community. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.